Hello and welcome, everyone. I am super excited for today's stream because I am here with some very, very special guests. If you don't know me, you may have seen me before. I've streamed with Nick, but I am Adrienne Tacke and I'm a senior developer advocate here at MongoDB. And today I am joined by much more fancy and important people. I will let them introduce themselves very soon. But yeah, I'm here with the team that has built and scaled an app in the middle of an unfortunately ongoing pandemic. So without further ado, I would love to introduce you to the CoronaTracker team. And I guess we can start with you, Luke, since you are on my top left on the screen. Please don't forget to unmute yourselves.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Luke. I am a musician turned developer, and I am a front-end developer in the CoronaTracker.
Woo! And Brian?
Hey everyone, my name is Brian Hough, and I am a graphic designer, art strategist turned UI UX strategist. So I've been the UI UX lead for CoronaTracker and one of the co-founders. So excited to be here.
Awesome. Dina, since we'll go clockwise.
Awesome. Hi everyone, I'm Dina. I was a front-end developer on CoronaTracker, and my background is a crypto enthusiast.
Amazing. And last but not least, Pavel.
Hey everyone, my name is Pavel. I'm a CTO and architect lead at CoronaTracker, and I turned developer from musician and philosopher.
So if you were paying attention, you'll hear that there are some musicians on this stream. And if you are amazing people, you may get to hear them play, but I'm not going to tell you when. I will just say you might get to hear them play, but we'll save that for later. So thank you so much for joining me today. Again, I'm super excited, and let's just get started. So can you tell me, any one of you, what is the CoronaTracker app? For anyone who has not heard of it or may have heard the name but is not sure what it does, is it just a journal? Is it just a place for news? Can you describe to our audience what it is that you built and what the CoronaTracker app is all about? We'll start with you, Brian.
Definitely. And thanks for that intro. So this obviously started at the peak of the pandemic in March. So really like how this got started was just like a call to action on social media. And we built this team of advisors that were healthcare practitioners and physicians, epidemiologists, people that were fighting a disease that we didn't really know anything about. And through talking with them, we wanted to sort of figure out like what is the best way to build technology? What's the best, like we're all are learning, right? Everyone in it as a developer, we're always learning about new technologies, new ways to do things. So it sort of, CoronaTracker, the idea was started of we need to do something to fight COVID, but then it turned very tactically into what ended up becoming a progressive web application. So it lets users map and monitor their health symptoms related to COVID, but also just health tracking in general. If you sort of think about Strava or Map My Run, we sort of created a Map My Run or Strava, but for your health. So for people that could be monitoring, their fever or certain symptoms that we were sort of learning about related to COVID, it would allow users to be tracking and monitoring and visualizing those for them to see. A lot of what we wanted to do was reduce hospital overload. So allow people to be knowing and tracking their own health so that maybe they don't need to go into the hospital, because it was a huge rush as our advisors were telling us that people were going to the hospital, and maybe then they were actually getting sick because there were people that were sick that were there. So we wanted to really make our app focused on keeping people, staying at home if they don't have the health symptoms that need it, that warrant going into a hospital. And so that's sort of like part one. And then sort of part two was education. We wanted to create these, and our front end devs could tell you that they built really great features for it, but it's these interactive flashcards, and it's sort of fast facts about COVID that we were learning about and was updating in real time. And then sort of third of all was where Mongo plays a huge role, was with SMS notifications and sort of helping inform people about what was going on. So sort of those three facets that were capitalized in our app, but and my great colleagues on the call too can tell us, but this was an app that sort of was built over time. So we didn't really know it was going to do all of these things. It's sort of, we learned different things that we could do. And sort of like, oh, that would be a cool feature, like let's add it. And I think open source lends itself to that buildable tech stack. So
sweet, thanks for that. So I'm actually going to switch it up a little bit here. I'd love to showcase your homepage and actually show everybody what it looks like so that they have some context as to what that looks like. So let me just change it up here, and I apologize all the streamers, like I don't have a stream deck yet. All right, everything's manual right now. But we're gonna get through this. So I'm gonna change the layout here, and I'm going to move here. Sweet. So this is exactly what Brian was talking about. You'll see here there's a little log here. It's pretty awesome. If you want to check it out, it is coronatracker.me if you do want to look at these and learn a little bit more about it. And I know you have some really great mock-ups here. Yes, that shows what you are doing. So Dina, can you tell us more about some of the particular features that you worked on and what you enjoyed about it, what were possibly some challenges while building the portions that you did on the CoronaTracker app?
Yeah, so definitely like a lot of the baseline structure, pretty much just anything that you start out when you're building like a React Native app. Your nav bar, just, the way that all the components will eventually fit into place. For me, walking into React, I was a complete newbie, so I really lucked out by being able to hop on Zoom calls with anybody that would just be able to sit there and like help me figure out like what am I doing with React at first.
Mm-hmm.
So especially Luke and a couple of other team members, they were helping me figure out like why wasn't this working with the CSS? Why was this happening with the material UI that we were using at some point?
Mm-hmm.
How do we bring everything together with the wireframes and the sketches that Brian provided?
Sweet. And as you started to go through these features, did you find that you actually enjoyed the tech stack you're working on? Did this app make you feel like, actually, I don't want to do this anymore?
Yeah, no, it was building with a purpose and it was learning with a purpose. So I never really felt like that creative burnout that comes with working on your own project, trying to figure out a user story. It was mapped out for you. So it was really fun to just take that and then put all the pieces together.
Sweet. How about you, Luke? Can you talk to us about how you came to join the CoronaTracker team? Did you find it on your own, or were you invited? What made you want to start helping and contributing to this project?
Yeah, so during my time at Flatiron, one of our colleagues was actually one of the speakers there. So they were talking about building the CoronaTracker app. And so I was like, well, this is really important right now. And, like Brian said, it was kind of like a call to arms. If you guys know the stack, if you guys are familiar, you want to contribute. And, being a person that is, I guess, multilingual, I was like, I can contribute in a variety of ways. And so one of the ways was through React. One of the other ways was leveraging Discord. I helped the team set up a Discord so we can kind of map out our steps, figuring out the version 1, the version 2, and really solidifying the app in its kind of like base state. I had wonderful time in regards of utilizing React and leveraging React and Redux to build out the routing systems, the different button panels, and it was definitely quite the experience. And it was a great experience because I felt like I was helping reduce the panic that was definitely at an all-time high back in March.
I want to talk more about that. I love that you set up a Discord channel for that, not just for people interested, but eventually for helping your group collaborate. This project has been contributed to by a global team, right? It's not just you. You are the 4 that I know that did work a lot on the app, could be considered core members, but there are other people that would not fit on my screen, but who did also play a huge role in contributing to this application. So maybe Pavel, could you tell us more about how you drove more people to this application? I know that global community was something really, really important for this application, not just to build it for the sake of the need of the actual app, but to also have a chance for more people to maybe get started with open source or find a way to participate in an overall coding community?
Oh, yeah, thank you. First, thank you for inviting us and give us opportunity to talk about this wonderful app. The global community. Well, I always was part of the global community because I'm not from US originally, and I felt like when the guys invite me to join, I felt very appreciated that they uh, call in someone not from US.
Mm-hmm.
And when we spread the word in social media, more people not from US join us. Like we have people from the Netherlands, we have people from Syria, we have people from a bunch of countries. We have total 46 contributors,
Wow.
and it's such a joy to live in this open source, multicultural, multilingual community in this fusion where everyone learning from each other and everyone growing together.
Have you had any difficulties in trying to accommodate multiple people from around the world? So I do see that there are some translations in place as part of your repo. Aside from the typical language barriers, have there been any other kind of difficulties working with a global team on something like this?
Well, rather than time difference,
Yeah.
I haven't noticed any like cultural conflicts or something like that. People very open-minded and very collaborative. I think this is the feature of open source projects, where people are coming to work together not for the necessary for the profit, but we all have a common goal, and we all have a willing to put effort into work and build the final product to help people.
Awesome. I absolutely love that. I do agree that open source is the best way to do that. Um, I wanted to also ask back to Brian. So you are the UI UX lead on here. Can you talk to me about your process on how you started, from the initial wireframes and mockups and ideas that you all had? Because I'm sure there were many in terms of what needed to be on here. But can you tell us more about the process of going through from idea to actually building it?
Definitely. I am such a proponent of, and Dina, I know we talk about this a lot, but like user-centric apps and being user-focused. So a lot of where I think I started, right? So I have a graphic design background, and I've kind of recently got into UI UX design because it's sort of the visualization of innovative technologies. I really like that whole application of how do you make helpful technology really easy to use, and how do you make it maybe fun or gamifying something or making it interesting so that you keep users coming back to continue using it.
Absolutely.
So a lot of where I started was kind of with the research. So when we were talking about the advisory board, it was kind of learning about, okay, here's this problem, here are all of these challenges, and kind of like, what do we do? So I'd say like the challenge first was identifying what are the features of this app, like what do we need it to do, and then how do we make it in a way that's accessible to users, and how do we make it accessible to people? So kind of put on my Photoshop and Figma hats on and kind of went straight into the designs. And I think if you go into our repo, you'll see several different iterations of the designs. And obviously, I love design because what you create initially will not be what the final product is. And I love that evolution of technology and software, especially open source, right? I mean, getting feedback from a global community. I mean, it really kind of started with a handful of people, and then we scaled this out. And it's been so helpful to get, real people in the medical fields to give us insight and advisement about what it should look like. And you'll see these different maps. I think it's kind of interesting because like in V1, which Adrienne, I see you're pulling up now, there's it might look a little bit sort of chaotic, but in terms of how we organize it, but I think that's the nature of working under a pandemic. I mean, we had no information about where COVID was going to go. We had no information about really what was going on. It's just we knew that there were these mounting deaths, that there were all these cases. And, you'll sort of see maybe even some designs in there that might make you cringe and be like, oh, yikes, like, what were they thinking, or what was Brian thinking in terms of designing some of this stuff? But it's sort of like we were really under pressure to deliver something that we could help. And, even the mounting pressure of talking to like friends and family, everyone was really scared. And I think we are still scared to a degree, but even in March, right, I kind of had to just like be clocking hours in like evenings and weekends, kind of working maybe into early morning, because we were kind of working on different time zones and different schedules. And, really as a volunteer, pro-social effort, we were kind of finding ways that we could help kind of around our own life and things that were going on, and sort of try to make this work. And see you putting up now with like the map. We then realized that like the map wasn't the best feature to add, but we did want to have flashcards. So it's super cool that we were able to kind of build our own design stack and really just, try to contribute. But it all kind of came back to the design. And then, obviously Pavel, Luke, Dina, and so many people on our team, this was kind of like the blueprint. But then we all were sort of encouraging each other to be like, no, like this is just the starting point, like explore, like figure out what you can do. I mean, just in terms of like the front end team, they built these crazy cool flashcards that are interactive. And me as a designer, they taught me so much about code, but I was not like a React master, like when they were going through and making the app. And they were kind of telling me, and they were like, is this good? Or like, what do you guys think? And we were all talking like, oh, you can do that? Like, whoa, I didn't know you could do that. And we were all kind of teaching each other. So the design really fueled the coding and the development. And I think that that's really unique and cool about just our project, was that it wasn't siloed. It wasn't sort of, okay, X person's doing design, X person's doing React. Now the app is done. There was this very fluid overflow of ideas and inspiration and collaboration. And kind of like if one person needed to go to sleep because it was the evening time, someone else was kind of picking it up in maybe another time zone, or maybe we would pick this up the next day. And we really just went into it. I mean, those flashcards, that was kind of like the initial visualization that like I was thinking about. And then the front end team created these amazing flashcards in the final product. And it sort of puts the design a little bit, to shame, because I didn't know what React really could do. I didn't know the capabilities that we could have. And then, now in like V4, which is like what our app has now, I mean, the difference from these first iterations to now, I think is day and night. And I love that. I love that like we all challenged each other to think about the user and about these problems and challenges. And then, how can we make the app better? And just a quick plug to our repo, like we always are welcoming contributions and support, and even just in Discord and getting the conversation going. That's how you make technology better. If you have, an enterprise team, all of those people are in the office working together to achieve common goals. We sort of had to create this enterprise-esque volunteer-based team globally and contribute. And and I'm looking at these designs now, and the app looks so different than what it did initially, but that's amazing, right? Like we were all working together to make this app really great and really useful.
Absolutely. There are a lot of great points that you made there. And definitely the first thing, if you're seeing this and you want to contribute to this, they are open source. So you'll see we have the GitHub repo on the bottom right on the screen here. So definitely check out the repo if you're looking for something. And I guarantee you'll want to have a couple of repos starred, because Hacktoberfest is coming up. So definitely keep that in mind if you want to get those pull requests in and earn your shirt, or plant a tree this year. I think that's different. But you made a lot of really good points, Brian. I love the fact that you have your version 1 wireframes up here. Like, who does that? I love seeing the actual journey here. You show the progress that you've made. I don't think a lot of people do that. They kind of just want to show the polished version. Everything has been great. It was perfect from the start, and that's rarely the case. So I absolutely love that you have that history kind of built in here into the repo, so you can see what changes were made, as you started to work on these apps and started to get users on here. Obviously you needed to change, right? There are things that you thought would work initially. You have some initial ideas, but before you actually build it and actually get people to use it, you won't know what's actually needed. Maybe that fancy thing that you were thinking of that looks really cool is actually not needed at all by the user. You really put the user first and see what makes the app better because the user actually needs it, or the person in this case, the person who's taking charge of their health. So I absolutely love that you have all the wireframes here. Dina or Luke, do you want to point me to any particular places in the repo that kind of coincide with what you've worked on? We promise we're not doing a code review. We're just kind of, this is more like a plug to say this is what I worked on, and I want you to be proud of what you've worked on. Maybe you also have some mock-ups of specifically shows where you worked on this app.
Do you want to go, Luke, or should I go?
You can go first.
For me, mainly it was the structuring of the symptoms.
Okay,
right?
So let's see. Can we find that here, somewhere here? And point me to the right place here.
Let me see. I think it should be in wireframes.
Would it be in wireframes? Current v3, part 2, maybe? Let's see.
Yeah.
This is the pulse. Let's check part 1. This is more pulse.
Oh no.
Other views to sort, maybe. Patients, info card, MVP subcomponents, maybe?
I think so. I don't know, Brian, if you want to hop on.
Yeah, let me try to dig through our repo a bit. Because Dina, I feel like you contributed like quite a bit, kind of not like all over the place generally with like React. Because I think it's something that was kind of cool that a lot of our team was working on and that's the thing too, like when we're just talking about things like not being in silos, it was like Dina was not just contributing to like one React component, like she was also advising on like the structure and like how things would work, even kind of, I would say, Dina, correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of just like the user flow, like how now we sort of have like what ended up being like 2 symptom things ended up becoming 4, and there was this behavioral health subsection, but like, you know, like you were providing expert advice on the code, but also kind of how the user would like go through things. You know, I feel like you contributed like a lot across the board, and Luke too. You guys were crushing it.
Yeah, that's fine. I wanted to find something just in case, but you can definitely still talk about it as I click through. So tell me more about the symptoms aspect of the app that you were talking about, Dina.
So we wanted to go by like what the typical symptoms were for COVID, and even the similarities that it has to the common cold, to the flu. Wanted to find a way, how can you track that the best, and how can you track it in a way that's empathetic for any user? Because at this point, we were at its infancy, we were still trying to narrow down who would be our main user base. So there was a lot of structuring going on here, and nothing makes me happier than like structuring everything and like complete uniform flow.
Mm-hmm.
So it was checking on, how do you highlight what's important? How do you not overwhelm a user with too many different things to select? It was all like these little design theories that that Brian definitely thought about when he was putting together this whole wireframe. So it was getting all to fit uniform, then getting it, mobilely responsive. So that was my favorite thing to build out.
That is so good to hear. I love when people actually like to structure things. You'd be surprised that a lot, I've done it myself especially when you're just trying to get something up and running, you're like, yeah, I'll get back to that later. But it's good to know that from the start, that this was important to you to have this kind of structure. How about you, Luke? Is there anything in particular that that I can pull up here on the repo so that you can discuss more?
So like one of the aspects, I guess in general, it was really great that we were able to kind of speak with people in the medical field about the specifics when we were building this app, because I felt like it helped us pinpoint, number one, kind of like our target age group in regards of the usability of the application, as well as kind of how technical one may have to be or not have to be in order to use it. And I think that's so important. And like you pulled up the map earlier, for example. I think back in March, one of the great things about talking with one of the medical specialists was, you know, our whole idea of it is we don't want to raise more panic in a society where panic is already at an all-time high. And I feel like our changes over the course of the app, you know, from where it was in the original designs to what we have it now, is such an improvement because of that. You know, I was building out, for example, the routing system, as well as the kind of the information. As the information is important because we want to educate people without scaring them, kind of a deal. You know, and I felt like that was really, really key component, because sometimes when you look at something like a map and you start seeing red everywhere, you freak out. And that, you know, our whole idea was, how do we reduce swarming in a hospital where people who may or may not have COVID may be in, you know, the same vicinity together. So our key thing was educate, and then, you know, have an app that can track your symptoms. And how do we differentiate, you know, what are the symptoms between this and what are the severity levels, or like, how are you feeling? You know, it becomes more of a log, and it allows the person to think more inwardly than outwardly. And I think that's so important because, again, we were at a place at the time where scare was at an all-time high. Everybody was buying out all the toilet papers.
Yes.
So it was definitely good to see that, you know, we had to narrow it down. It can't just be, you know, a map, or like, oh my gosh, which of these doctors can we contact, you know, because I feel it now. You know, it needed to be something very specific for the users to be able to track their symptoms, as well as kind of calming down the situation. And I think that's one of the biggest benefits of our app, is that we educate and we alleviate kind of like the scare of it. We make it tolerable. We make it kind of where people feel like they're not as in danger as they might believe or think that they were. You know, and I feel like that's one of the great things about our global community, where everybody's contributing, you know, details and information. We definitely attribute a lot of what we've done in the video calls, because we get the most information from the people who are actually in the medical field.
That, I mean, I gotta give all of you props. I love hearing this journey because with something like this, with an application like this, it's easy to say, you know, we need to get on board and put something out there, right? You want to take advantage of the situation, but that's totally not the case with you. You actually put the people who are going to use your application first. I don't think I've heard many conversations where they talk about what you're talking about, where devs talk about, instead of just saying, oh, I have all of this information and I want to display it in a pretty chart, you actually took that feedback from the doctors, from the medical professionals that you worked with, and other advisors, to say, you know, from a developer's perspective, you're like, yeah, I have this data, I need to show it because that's the data that I have, right? But to think further than that, to say, oh, that's going to scare the person, that's really interesting to me, to because I totally, when you said that, I'm like, yeah, when I open this app, I'm going to look at it and go, oh no, the zombie apocalypse is here. Like, uh-oh.
Exactly.
So that's really, really awesome to hear. And you mentioned the toilet paper outage. Like, it's funny you mentioned that, because internally, our team here, we had a hackathon, and I think one of the ideas that I had was to do a toilet paper check. So I don't know if you can integrate. I think it's not a problem anymore. But when it was, I was thinking of, you know, as you were going to the grocery store to try and find toilet paper when it was all out, you would kind of like check in and say, nope, the, you know, grocery store on so and so is completely out of toilet paper. So then you have less people going there because they know that it's out already. It's almost like a Waze, but for toilet paper. So but luckily we don't need that anymore. So, but that's pretty cool. I absolutely love the fact that you are using all the information that you're getting and putting that back into the app. That's super awesome. I want to.
I
Oh,
just want to add
yeah.
to, I'm sorry, I just want to add to what Luke said about the education.
Yes,
It's very
please.
important to share accurate knowledge about the virus and about the nature of the virus, how it spread, and what's the measure we can use to stop spreading. Because when we start, uh, there was little understanding of how it works, and people basically base their decision on Googling or what their neighbors said. And what we did, it's pretty awesome that we talked to the professionals in the field, to the doctors, to the biologists, biotechnologists, and we get the accurate data about the nature of this disease, of this thing. And only then we start educating people when we have actual knowledge based on the data.
I also appreciate that. There's so much misinformation going around, and even with this is something brand new to us. So that is amazing that you are able to consider that first, right? It's back to that point I made where, you can start immediately and you can start creating something ASAP because you just need to get it out there and into the hands of people. But the fact that you all took all of these considerations from making sure that the information is accurate to seeing what is actually needed for the people who are going to be using it, and not just what they need, but how to have it make them feel better in this kind of crisis, I think is super, super important. I feel like that's something that we should consider even when we're not in a pandemic. That's something that should be going into any application that we're building. But that is really, really good to hear that you take all of this information and try to back it up with some medical advisors and professionals. Um, Pavel, I want to continue talking to you about this application. So we know that you are definitely taking it seriously when it comes to the science behind it, the facts of what you're showing on this application, because you know that this may be the point for a lot of people that get their information about what is happening with COVID. But can you talk to us more about how you develop the actual tech stack of this application with such a global team and so many different opinions? How did you come to the stack that you are using now?
Well, it wasn't the one person decision. It was the same process with the front end we
Uh-huh.
just talked about. There was the same process with the tech stack, just talking and trying and figure out what worked best or what is not working. And when I joined the app, I also joined the project as a front end dev. It was very easy because it was we have a wireframes and we have an empty React app, and you can just set up the Redux and you're already hero. And but then complexity start growing, and this is actually one of the pain point of the this kind of projects, grow of the complexity. And when new devs come in, they it's very hard to contribute because uh, the complexity of the code is very high, and we decide that we need the documentation. We need to write the documentation and contributing guidelines. So we did that. So now I think it's much more easy to figure out how to contribute and how what the stack looks like and how to be part of the project. Um, and yes, the tech stack grow gradually. We start from the point that we want user to own their data. So we don't want centralized database where we store all the user data. That's why we use the block stock
Mm-hmm.
on our backend. And it's very great that as a developer, I can see all the users. Like it was so new for me. I was coming from Ruby on Rails API, and you can design API and you can basically see everything what's going on in your database. And here you can see only your user, which you create, your dummy user or your own user. and you can't see what's going on with other users. And it's really awesome feature of the block stack, that ownership and privacy of the user data. Yeah, then we decide. Then we start thinking about how should we proceed with the education. And in addition to the flashcards, to the gamification, we decided, hey, let's do the SMS notification to the users about what's going on in the world, or just random facts about the virus. And that's the place where the MongoDB come into play. I did work with MongoDB before on my learning project, and documentation for Mongo is very good. It's very easy to use, and
I think our docs
we just
team will appreciate that. So shout out to the docs team for awesome docs. And also, Pavel, before I let you continue, I just want to make
Yeah.
sure that you do have your video turned off. Is that on purpose?
no, it's on.
Oh, okay. Right now we don't see your video, so I just wanted to make sure we can see your face when we're talking to you.
I restart my video. How about now?
Let's give it a moment. Still no. We still see your avatar.
That's strange. I mean, on my call, I can see my face. It's moving.
Interesting. Let me try changing the layout really quick just to see if it. I have it tiled, and we see everyone but you. It's odd.
Oh, okay. I can reconnect to the call. And
Sure, we'll wait for you.
Yeah.
We want to see your
Yeah.
face when you talk to us, so
Okay.
let's try it.
All right.
And thank you for your patience, everyone. I just want to give everyone the chance to be featured on here because they did a really awesome job, and I think they deserve the right to show their face if they would like to. All right. Yay, we see you now. All right, so I'm going to go back to Spotlight. And all right, keep going, Pavel. Tell us more about how you used MongoDB.
So yeah, as I said, I used MongoDB before, and it's very easy to use. You can perform all the CRUD actions in the MongoDB, and without needed to design whole API. So we decided we wanna make app lighter for the user. So we decided to use the AWS Lambda services to process these requests and send SMS functions outside in the cloud. So it's gonna be faster for user. And we wrote the functions in Go, which use Twilio to send SMS, and we use MongoDB to store and update user data. For example, we have the array of the facts about virus, and we store it in the MongoDB, and we have all the users who sign up for the notifications in MongoDB, and we track which fact already goes to the user phone, and we never send we never duplicate these facts when we send it to the user. So it's very fast and very easy to use, and yeah, it's very cool.
Sweet. Now I want to ask you a little bit more. Did you, aside from the fact that you all may have had some prior experience to MongoDB, was that part crucial to the fact that this app was continually being built on? So for example, on your education service, you may have new facts that were coming in, or you may have had new data that you needed to store. Was MongoDB a really good place for that in terms of the flexibility? Was that one of the reasons why you chose that, is because the data that you were about to store in the education service was maybe not as consistent as you would like?
Well, I think it's consistent. It's just very dynamic.
Right.
And MongoDB is very dynamic and allows you to process data very easily, in my opinion. And I mean the and lots of people already familiar with the MongoDB workflow, so it was like not natural selection, uh, natural choice to make.
No, yeah, that's a good. I still see that it is part of a lot of MERN stacks, mean stacks, all the stacks, right? So I would agree with you that it is something that is still more widely available in terms of developer skill set, which is important if you want to enable a global community to contribute, right? Um, are there any pain points that you came across with building this? So maybe MongoDB specific, maybe not. Maybe there were other parts of the architecture that were a little bit more difficult. And anybody can answer this, but what were some of the hardest parts of building this application, or at least setting up the initial architecture?
Well, I already mentioned the growth complexity of the code,
Right.
and most of our developers they're junior level on a bootcamp grads, and it become very harder and harder to contribute when become bigger and more complex. But yeah, again, documentation. For example, our colleague Jason uh, Schrader wrote awesome documentation for the uh, new people, documentation and guidelines for the new people, how you contribute and what tech stack we use. And he come bring together all the links to the tutorials for every tech stack at the MongoDB, AWS, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think another pain point is grow complexity of the organization and community. Because again, when I joined, it was only a few people, less than 10 people, I think.
Wow.
And it was very easy to communicate and to coordinate. And but at the peak of the activity, we have I don't remember, several hundred people in Discord, and we have a different, so to say, departments. We have a translation department, we have analytics, we have a documentation, and we have a front end, back end teams, and coordination between all the teams of volunteers who live all around. It's it was very difficult to uh, difficult to come up with a efficient workflow. But I think we did a pretty good job to manage this difficulty of the growth.
I see that. I'm looking at your repo now and looking at all of the contributors, all of you included on here, and that's really wild to see how many people are on here. And I love that you are actually, just like you said, very thorough, right? So if you want that global community, if you want more people to help, you need to give them a hand in terms of how they can help. So the contributing guidelines, something that I think a lot of repos take for granted. If you just have some of this and get as much information as possible to people who want to help, I think that makes it more likely for them to help, especially if they're new or maybe a little junior and might feel intimidated or feel like they won't be able to contribute. So it's wonderful that you have the contributing guidelines on here. I remember when I would do some Hacktoberfests, pull requests to try to earn those 4, right? And there were some repos where it's just all they did was put the label good first issue or Hacktoberfest, and that's it. There's no other rules around it. And whenever you did end up opening the pull request, they'd say, oh, well, this is wrong and this is wrong and this doesn't have this. And well, you didn't write that out. You didn't spell it out for any contributors to say this is, I love this. Like, you even have style guides. How do you name your branches? How do you create your git commit messages? This is wonderful. These are super great resources for new developers, for anyone who feels intimidated by open source to get started. It's this kind of documentation that really helps them, because you help take them step by step, and you show that you're willing to help them out by writing these kinds of documents. So props to the whole team who created these docs. These certainly help. I want to actually continue talking about this, and maybe Luke, you can talk more, since you started and established the Discord community. What was that like? I know everybody has a Discord community now, but it is a really awesome, awesome place. We were just chatting about this prior to us going live, and we're like, "Are you Team Slack, or are you Team Discord?" And it seems the consensus is Discord is slowly taking over Slack.
Discord is the way.
Yeah.
Discord is definitely the way to go. I think being a kind of like having a music and a gamer background, I've just always used Discord a lot, and over the years that I've used Discord, it just became kind of like a habit for me. And for me at that time, Slack was fairly new. I didn't really know how to manipulate it, and I was like, well, Discord, you could just create your channel. It's simple, it's straightforward. You can, give certain administrative and moderator rights, as well as block certain channels or allow certain channels. And I feel like it was just really good, because our goal back then was, okay, how can we try to build this app as quickly as we can, but also with pinpoint accuracy. And for me, Discord was definitely the way to go. We were able to create the channels, each specific channels that allows people to put documentations or notes from, let's say, our meetings with the medical advisors, things that we could look back on, as well as voice channels at the bottom where people can just start pair programming, when they're building out stuff. And so that was definitely a big help, in the sense of, okay, we know who's online, we know which room to go to when we're working on certain issues. If we need to pair program with somebody, or have somebody who is more senior guide the more junior developers in regards of working on different issues, we have that room available. They could talk things out, they could screen share. It was just, everything was there. So it was definitely something that was definitely, it was much needed.
That's so great to hear. And I keep hearing that too, that Discord has been great for many uses, right? Whenever you hear Discord, you're like, oh, that's just a gaming thing. But it's not. It's a lot of the features that it offers actually does make it a lot easier for these kinds of situations. So great example you made, which was to do the pair programming, right? To just spin up a quick channel like that, and to have the voice, I think, is really important. Is a great way to kind of help those people who may be stuck, right? And it really does build that community. I like the fact that you have this available for everybody. So were there any other pain points that you may have discovered while using Discord? I know we love it. I know that it's a favorite, but are there any shortcomings that you've seen so far while working with the global community that you have seen, or has everything been rainbows?
No, there's definitely some pain points with Discord. It's because at the time, it was kind of all hands on deck. We don't know what's going to happen in the next month.
Right.
We need everybody's help. Everybody contribute. So, I mean, as we had people funneling in, we had to put out a Discord bot to help kind of filter what people wanted to contribute with, where they were coming from, and how they want to be a part of this. Some people may not be, technically inclined or whatever, and they just want to work on translations if they're multilingual, for example.
Mm-hmm.
We need all the translators we can get. All right, cool, we'll put you on the translation team. And we definitely needed to put, to implement a few bots in there to keep track of who's coming in, because, like Pavel said, at the height of it, we had like over 200, 300 people. And so sometimes using a Discord, it can get very hectic very quick, especially if you're looking for, let's say, you're looking for a front-end developer and everybody on the side is just a newcomer. You're like, where's the developer? And then you have to like scroll up or scroll down, but it was definitely very interesting. So we had to kind of give people certain administrative rights, as well as kind of like a way to rally the group together. You know, okay, we have the front end team, okay, we have the back end team, okay, we have the database team, okay, we have the UX UI team, and in each of those channels, let's talk about this, and then at the end of the week or so, we'll have like a group powwow, kind of talk about what each person or what each part of the group has done, and how we can better collaborate with each other instead of just a plethora of data.
I can totally relate. I've been on a couple Discords as well. Actually, I was just on one yesterday for a hackathon, and I think there was only maybe 200 people at most, but it gets really, really hectic, especially if you are just there kind of browsing. And I think the largest Discord that I was on was when I was on the Animal Crossing Discord. It was for a Nookazon, which is like an Amazon for Animal Crossing. Yes, it's a thing. But yeah, I totally agree that it can get super hectic. Thank you for explaining that. Another question just popped into my head. This is more for Dina. When you started working through this, I know you mentioned a lot of getting used to React and really getting your bearings straight coming into the application. As you started to see this, had you developed an opinion for any of the design libraries that you may have used? Did you like them, or were you like, I would rather create my own? Did you like building on top of them? Can you talk to us more about that experience and how that has helped you learn?
Yeah, of course. So, well, I come from like a background of self-taught HTML, CSS. I've been honing this for years since MySpace layouts were the thing to have. So I'm going, just learning over the years, and then suddenly this comes up, React comes up, Material UI comes up. Semantic UI, I fiddled with a little bit. As far as, I guess, design libraries go, I see it now. I see the structure now. I see like how components get built out, why they're important, the difference between like imperative and declarative, basically. I guess going forward, there was a lot to learn, but I'm still like building on that.
Absolutely. I guess my question then is, would you, from the tech stack that you have used, would you use it again in your own projects, or would you look for something else?
I would definitely use it again in my own projects.
Sweet. Well, I absolutely loved speaking to all of you. I wanted to just give a heads up that Dina is actually about to give her presentation to Flatiron School soon, so she may drop off a little bit, but give her all the good vibes and all the good wishes. But I don't think she'll need it. She's gonna rock it. One other question, actually, for this one's for Brian. So as the UI UX lead for this, would you find that your role has kind of, I don't want to say decreased, because I know you still play a huge part in it, and it's an ongoing project, but now that the kind of initial interactions have been built and iterations are in place, what are your next steps, I guess, specifically for you, Brian?
Totally. I love that you bring that up, because it's super interesting, like how design has turned into very developer focused and very coding focused. And I'll always remember when we were doing the translations that Pavel was talking about at earlier, just in our live stream. So I was helping a little bit with writing the JSON files that would then be like Python programmed to like pull from the data. And I just remember, Pavel, I don't know if you remember this, if I specifically messaged you, but I messaged someone and I was just like, I need to like sit down and talk to someone because I don't understand this. Like, what is a JSON file? What are we talking about here? What does that even mean? And I loved how just talking to like the developers and the programmers, they knew so much about all of this stuff, and they kind of welcomed me into like the programmer world. And kind of Dina too, like my whole background literally was like through HTML and CSS, and I got the book. It's the John Duke It book. It's like the black book with the red and green lettering, and it's HTML and CSS.
Uh-huh.
And one of my great high school friends actually gave that to me. This was like the summer after I graduated college, and he was like, "You'll thank me later. Like, take this and learn." And I kind of learned like HTML, CSS. I remember going to my first hackathon, and I was like, "Oh, I think I got this. I know how to build apps." And it's like, no. Like, there's so many more layers to it. And I kind of hone the UI UX design because that's obviously I come from a design background, so like I know that. But I loved how my role has become much more programmer, developer focused by nature of like working for an app. And I think I'm really grateful for this team and everyone in the CoronaTracker community because like they've given me so many skills and so many insights and so many ways of looking at tech that like I had never really been exposed to. And I always like kind of, this is like my mantra, but it's like you only know what you know. So like what I knew was literally HTML and CSS, and you know, Dina and Pavel and Luke, they were like clone React app, spin up components and pages, and I was like, I had never seen that
Like,
world before. So they were like, I would say very patient with me. I'd say even answer questions because I remember the JSON files like really threw me off, and that was later on when we were working on the actual translations component, where I was like, a JSON file, I've heard of that in X like node modules thing, but I didn't really know what it actually meant to like write one of those. See, and now like what's really cool is like I've done like some coursework, and I got to like build some apps through Udacity's blockchain developer program, and like it's cool because that like the insights that I got from CoronaTracker, now it's like, oh, update X and such parameters in the JSON file, and this is the JSON lock file, and it gave me like the understanding of it. But I like how it's still design is super important, and it's still important to have a design user focus, but it's even more vital, I think, for UI UX designers and UI UX strategists in general to actually know how to code. Because I remember like in the early days when I was like in college and like early graduation, and like you make friends with startups and different people, and then they're sort of like, Brian does design. Can you help my company with like UI UX stuff? And I was like, oh, for sure. And I'm learning skills as I go. But then it kind of gets to a point of like, okay, so like, can you code it? And it's all like, I feel like up until CoronaTracker, I didn't have that background. I've sort of like, I can make it look nice and fun and cool, but I don't know about the code. That's on you. Like I kind of was in that mode. So like CoronaTracker was amazing specifically for me, but even broader in our community, like I know a lot of people that took the CoronaTracker experience that they had and then used that to land jobs, to have stuff that they can bring into interviews. So I think really just like a lot of like what we were trying to foster and focus on in CoronaTracker was like, let's build an app, but like let's also build each other. So it's like you're not just doing front end stuff. Like Dina and Luke, like you guys weren't just doing front end things. You were also doing like user experience. You were doing things like I was doing. Pavel, I mean, you're doing like all the back end stuff, but even in the front end, like I remember you were like contributing to components, and then obviously you've been super vital on the back end with like AWS and Mongo and Blockstack and everything. But you were spinning up components in React as well. So I like how it's like I was the UI UX lead, but it's like my role has expanded way beyond that, and everyone else as well. And I like that too. I just like, I always remember that when I was doing UI UX strategy, my weakness was like I didn't know how to code. I didn't know how to do those types of things, and it was kind of like a little bit of like a sore spot for me because I was like, what do I need to do to learn these things? And it's like you need to get experience on projects, and that's like kind of like my pitch and my plug for CoronaTracker is like contribute to open source stuff. Like I contributed to like Hacktoberfest, and that literally got me up to speed with like Git and what does that mean to like contribute to a public repo? How do you clone it to your computer? And then work on something, push code to there. I remember like explaining to my family like one family like not family meeting. So like thinking of work because it's Friday, but we had like a family get together, and I was like explaining to them like, no, like you can take code online, push it on your computer, do something to it, and then have it upload. It's just like Google Docs. and I don't know if they were as excited as I was, probably not, but it's cool because it's like, you don't know what you don't know. So like this community has been amazing because we all have pushed each other to learn more and to be more, and to be technology strategists, to be leaders of tech. So I'm like super grateful for this community, and I know we've all sort of helped each other in our own small ways with each other in our own career growths.
I can't think of a better segue than to show your repo again and absolutely ask anyone watching if you want to help out. This is probably one of the nicest communities I have ever seen that is welcoming to newcomers and people who want to contribute. So please, please, please check out the repo that is underneath Luke right now. Check out the repo and see if there's something that you want to contribute to. And just like he mentioned, like everybody mentioned, you don't have to know how to code. Brian didn't know. I think you had a little bit of experience prior to this, but it was really through this community that you actually gained those skills and became confident in adding that to your skill set. Before I show the repo, I have to ask. So obviously, I'm assuming that when you were asking for help, Brian, that this is kind of how you came to know Pavel and Luke and Dina, and this is how your group kind of formed and became friends. But I have to ask, I guess anybody, Pavel, Dina, and Luke, what were your first thoughts when this UX UI guy was like, "Hey, can you help me out with like what's this JSON thing?" What were your initial thoughts when he reached out for help? I guess we'll start with Pavel.
Oh yeah, the Brian wasn't the first who reached out to help.
Yeah.
It's built in the culture of this community. Like when we stuck, for example, I have a rule: if I working on a problem and I stuck more than for 20 minutes, I reach out for help to anyone. And
It's a good rule.
I think that this is the like a natural workflow of this project. And yeah, I help a ton of people to work through, for example, Git workflow, like how to do rebase, how to do commit, how to do pull requests, and something like that. But I also learn a lot from the people who know more than me. For example, I never worked with AWS before, and we have some urgent, before we publish the beta version, we have some urgent work on AWS, and the Carter asked me to to do some deployment. I was like, okay, I open this documentation and I go through, but you have to stay on the line, because if I'm stuck, I can just broke all the app altogether. So
you're
you
like
have to be
sudo
available.
deploy.
Yes, and everything worked out gladly.
Mm-hmm.
It was very exciting and scary when I removed all the graphics from the repo and deployed an AWS
Ooh.
S3
Uh-huh.
bucket. And I see in the console like messages that I delete several hundred files, and I was afraid to open the URL with the deployed build of the React app, like because you never know.
You're like,
But
uh-oh.
gladly everything worked well, and all the LinkedIn to the files in the S3 bucket work nicely, and we deployed our beta version of our app from the first try. So
I think we can all relate to that. I know I have done that as well, where I'm like, oh no, oh no. And so I think it's a learning experience for everyone. I think that's what's so awesome about it, especially if it's something like this where the community is okay with it, right? Like you get to try and make those mistakes and you'll be mostly forgiven for them, but you have those learning opportunities. And maybe you can't do that at work, right? That's one place you probably don't want that to happen, but not to discourage that you shouldn't ever fail. It feels like a safer place for you to make those kinds of mistakes and learn from them. And I think it's a great place to do that with the community behind you. And just like you mentioned, everyone knows something that you don't know. You can learn from everybody. If you think that you can't learn from somebody else, there's more that you need to learn. But I want to keep going with that with you, Luke, and Dina, and then we may have a little surprise at the end. But Luke, what was something that you learned as a result of working on this project or this app?
Sure. Like Pavel said, one of the most important things is ask questions. Definitely ask questions, because when things start going south, sometimes you just need an extra pair of eyes, to look through your code, to look at what you're working on, because sometimes you could just get lost in the sauce, and you just stare down at code and you're like, okay, this takes you to this component, this takes you to that component. Where is this component? I remember it was here. Does anybody have a spare component? I need to put it right here. It's crazy. And I remember when I was when I was working on this, I was like, okay, what is Redux? I've only worked with React. What is Redux? How do you have a global state? Originally, there was a local state. Now there's a global state. What is going on? But I mean, overall, I think you just got to be comfortable with talking to people. And like Brian said, you know what you know. And so everything that you don't, it's definitely good to ask, because when you first get that repo pull, right? Like, I want to be a part of the team. And then you look at all the designs and all the stuff that Brian did. Like, I'll be honest, when I first opened it up, I was like, there is no way I could be a part of this. What is this? Because everything just looked so complicated. I was like, they're making this mobile app. This is going to be for Android, for iOS, for AI, for everything that I don't know. And so I got really intimidated. And until I really kind of sat down and dug in the code and asked people, okay, dig through one issue at a time, figure out what that is. Ask people if you don't know, how do I change things? How do I put an action? How do I make an action reducer? How do I plop things into global state using Redux? It's like, sometimes it's difficult researching by yourself, but it's always good to kind of get that extra pair of eyes to kind of help you along through it. Oh, I remember doing this for, this issue that I had. Maybe it could help you with this issue. And I think that's one of the greatest things that I appreciated about CoronaTracker. We were all in it together. And I think that's what makes it awesome.
Absolutely. That is totally relatable, especially for a lot of people who teach them these things, right? You kind of almost get stuck in just being by yourself, and it's totally different working on a team. There's a lot of other things that you learn working on code with other people, and I think that brings us to Dina. What is something that you have learned while working through here that you didn't think you would learn, I guess?
GitHub etiquette.
Oh, that's a good one.
So, like, the first thing you learn about GitHub is, just the simple commands. You have your repo up there. You do git add, git commit m, git push origin master, and then you have the luxury of pushing to master. But this time it's different.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have to make a branch. We can't push to master. But then you see your pull requests are getting reviewed. You're getting asked questions. Why did you do this? Why did you do that? And not to mention the whole thing's in an organization. Mm-hmm. So it just taught me this whole new level of a Git workflow to really stay organized. And I've been using it more and more now. And I've really been making the most out of, what GitHub really is, what more it offers than just a place to store your code. So that was a really awesome thing to learn, aside from React, just to piggyback on what Luke said about components too.
I think that is a great thing to learn. That is one of those things that they don't teach you, right? They kind of focus on particular things. And let me go back to the repo really quick. So again, this is where it all happened. If you want to contribute to this project, please, Brian, Luke, Dina, and Pavel are asking you. They welcome you to come to this repo and find something that interests you, that they want you. They're looking for contributors, and you don't have to know how to code. You don't have to know certain things. You can be intimidated, but they're there to help you. There's an awesome Discord server that Luke has established where you can ask for help. Pavel is there if you have any questions with Git and other things. And this community is just welcoming and wants you to help contribute. Even if it's a translation file, even if it's something that you may think is small, every little bit helps. And as you can see from today's discussion, I think everybody here definitely benefited and had an awesome experience working with this kind of open source application. So thank you all so much. Dina, I know you may have to drop off. Good luck on your presentation. You're going to rock it. It's going to be awesome. And you are amazing for, coming and being on this stream and then going straight into your presentation. So all the good vibes to you.
Thank you. Thanks.
And yeah, again, I can't think of a better segue than to please, everyone watching, if you're interested, certainly check out the app, this GitHub repo. They are welcoming any and all contributions, and I'm sure everyone here won't mind if you reach out to them if you have any more questions, or join their Discord server and ask them how you can help. And without further ado, if you have made it here this long, thank you for staying with us this long. You are in for a treat. So if you were here from the beginning, you heard that we have a couple musicians on our stream today. And so I did have a fancy ending song here, but I don't know if you're ready for this, but you can jam it out. Jam it out, guys. Show them what you got. Play yourselves out. Go ahead and
Come on, Luke. Come on, Luke.
Alrighty, here we go.
Amazing.
Well, I think we're almost in tune. So.
Well,
we gotta make sure we get the
thank you so much, Dina, Luke, Brian, Pavel. Thank you so much for joining us. And that was amazing. You saw it here first. It's the first time guests have played their own outro song. We loved having you here, and we'd be happy to have you back anytime. And again, please check out that repo if you want to go join. Thank you so much for joining us today, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adrienne. This was awesome.
To talk.
We loved having you, and we will see you next time. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks everybody.
Bye.
Bye.